Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. I think you're the third time guest.
Third time.
So,
Time's the charm.
the one and only, we have Mr. Ryan Sprague in the house. How are you doing, sir?
Dude, doing great, man. Just got a great morning walk in with Rachel and our new puppy. It's springtime here in Boston. So, life is coming back into the flavor here. And so I'm having a great time, man. Thanks for having me back on.
So much has changed, since we last talked. You've been on so many podcasts, but more importantly, talk to me about, I'm really on this thing right now of like environment, right? Like, I think when you're building a business, like you always do the sacrifice. We started moving into our house yesterday. That's been being remodeled forever. And I don't think enough people take into context what they come home to, what's around them and everything. How has been being in the apartment and having your own space? How has that done for you and your...
Oh, dude, it's been amazing, man. Like, that is the word of really the year, space, right? Like, I've told Alex and pretty much everyone that I can speak it to, including you now and all your listeners, that this is my year of efficiency, right? And I'm sure you understand this, like, it's very easy to work hard and get stuck into the notion of working hard all the time. But then we're spelling ourselves into, at least in my case, like expending too much energy and fraying myself in too many directions. And so this is the year of bringing everything back together. And the space has been pivotal in just allowing that realization to really be embodied and then be able to actually take action on it as well. So it's been huge, man. It's so much fun.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because one of the things I see in my clients, but just in people in general, is that nobody's behaving as if they're going to do this forever. They're behaving as if they're doing it in month spurts.
Yeah.
It's like if the long-term goal is to do this forever, right? Own businesses, do whatever. You might not do it in the same capacity, but like perfect example is like we were really busy. Like we've done so much change in 100 days. And I told them, I said, if it doesn't make the company more efficient, or it doesn't need to be needed right now in the next 60 to 90 days, you need to punt it. Right? Exactly. Because we've done the growth part and we changed so much of the company. Now it's execution. Now it's getting the reps in. Two totally different things.
Yeah. I'm so glad we're talking about this because I feel like, we hear this term, the entrepreneurial disease, right? And while I'm not going to call it that, it is a condition of being an entrepreneur and really just like doing anything that you're passionate about, right? And the idea is that, and I'm sure you've realized this too, like you said, you don't run a marathon the same way you attack a sprint, right? We all know that logically. Yet a lot of times we can know that intellectually and then realize at a certain point, like I did, like, well, I might know that intellectually, but I haven't embodied it yet. And when you're running around in this frantic energy of like, I got to get everything done right now, first of all, it doesn't put you in a place to be able to hold space and be able to do what you do. It doesn't put you in a space to be able to be the head of the company and be able to be that calm eye of the storm. And it also, like, people can pick that up, right? And one of my ultimate missions is to always show people that, because again, a lot of people I work with, they're in the process of fulfilling their dreams, finding out what they truly want in life. And I never want to be someone who puts an energy out of like, oh, it's so stressful, because it's not. Like, it can be, sure, you can definitely look at it that way, but we can also look at it like, wow, how amazing is it that we get to do what we truly love in life? And of course, things shift and move, but that's beautiful too. And so in that, being able to really enjoy the journey, like I've heard that so many times in my life, and only in the past really 6 months have I actually started to embody enjoying the journey part instead of just always going for the destination.
Well, I think one of the things that I've fallen in love with, and Cassie has something to do with maturity and growth, it's like, I am totally fine with the rainy days. I'm totally fine with the problems. Like I'm not like oh fuck, here we go again anymore. Like that's gone. It's okay. This is an opportunity to grow even more. And in my opinion, that that's when you truly reach a level of growth that's sustainable.
Definitely. Yeah. And, the idea is just that, right? Sustainability. And also, like, if we want to enjoy something, how we do anything is how we do everything. So I always bring up the gym as an analogy, right? So if you're motivated to get in shape, right, you can understand that you might like pull a muscle here and there. Things might happen. You might not get good sleep. You might try to push through it. But if every time you pull a muscle, you're like, fuck, the world's falling down, I'm never going to be fit, like, no one's going to come save the day for you, right? So what I've noticed is that, while I didn't do that in fitness, I had learned that I hadn't yet like evolved it into every aspect of my life. And at the end of the day, like, that was just something I was doing to myself. Like, no one was doing it to me. No one was putting this pressure on me. No one was telling me you have these deadlines. And this is like the challenge that I'm sure, in any go-getter gets, right? Like, part of what I truly love is making like kind of wild goals for myself, right? But that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when I only had that button of like big goal to big goal to big goal, right? Like one after the other, then it just gets really stressful. And eventually, like, I'm my own worst boss, and there's no one I can blame. That's the funniest part of owning your own business, is eventually I had to look at myself and be like, no one is ever putting this pressure on you. Like, no one's saying you have to do these things. And so why don't we make it more efficient and allow me to actually enjoy the process of going from big goal to big goal? And if I don't reach it, hey, that's awesome. What did I learn? What can I do better next time? And let's just keep it going, in a fun way.
1000%. And I think the biggest thing that I think about all the time, and as you've got busier and your time is more precious and your group's getting bigger and bigger that you're coaching, one of the biggest concerns that I have as we continue to buy more companies and hire more employees is like, I don't care if I have 1,000 employees or 100, I want to operate the same way as if I had 3. Yes. And so that's my biggest fear, is like, I don't ever want to lose what I bring to the table and my connectivity with my employees, but maybe what I'm doing has to change as we get bigger. So I do have that space available. And one of the biggest things that I talk about all the time as you take on a role is that a lot of what I do day to day doesn't look, if you were seen from the outside in, it doesn't look like work, right? Yeah. But like, but I actually think the hardest thing was getting comfortable in the identity of that is work. And that to me is the biggest shift, is that as my analogy, my joke is, the better you get at cooking, the farther you get away from the kitchen.
Yes.
So the celebrity chef doesn't get to cook anymore, but that was the love of what he got started.
Exactly. And I can totally see that, because at the end of the day, like, what I truly love is, and I've been doing a lot of work in Kabbalah and a lot of different spirituality programs, financial literacy, all these things. And what I've realized is, like, what I truly love more than anything, the reason I truly feel I'm here above cannabis or anything that I'm necessarily putting this energy into, is helping other people feel safe to be themselves in all hyphen ways. And that starts by me being able to be myself in all hyphen ways. And for me to feel safe in my experience of being alive. And that, I think, is the most attractive thing that a leader can do, is allow people to understand, like, hey, you can feel safe in your experience of being alive, right? You don't need to have all the answers. All you get to do is ask really good questions, and also laugh with people about the hilarity of life, the hilarity of business, right? While still showing up and being able to do what you need to do. Like, that, to me, when I've had people do that, like Mark England, for instance, is a perfect example, right? He's like, I don't have all the answers, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and you should too, right? And so, like, that kind of energy is, I think, at the foundation of everything that I want to show up as a leader, as a coach, etc. And so being able to first give that back to myself and have more time to stop and smell the roses has been pivotal. Because again, like you said, right, like, a chef gets into the kitchen because they love cooking, and when it becomes their business, sometimes it can all too often end up like they're not actually having time to cook anymore. They might be teaching these kind of things, and so
I don't get to have fun anymore.
Yeah.
Like, my whole day is revolved around insurance, angry customers, and lawyers. Like, it's like, it's like, so like, when I go out, it's a true story. Like, just for like a perfect example, it was like 2 Saturdays ago, like, we had a client here, and I went out and changed a water heater with one of my techs, and I'd never done that before. And it was a Saturday and it was rainy, but I learned more from spending 5 hours with my tech in the field than 6 months of in the business could have taught me.
Yeah. It's funny how that happens.
Having So we just had a meeting with my sales guy and my new project manager. Like, you have to go out in the field. If you're going to sell these things, you got to understand when you put something into play, what the tech's seeing from their side. I would say the number one thing that has propelled me in the last year and a half is that, and my dad, we were talking about this yesterday, I have this innate ability to look at every player in the situation and see the perspective of every person. I could see, because there's extreme ownership, but I can also say, okay, well, I could see why that customer would be upset with that. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But I can also see my point, but not having emotion centered around it, but being able to sit in the seat of everybody allows a unique perspective, because you have to play short, but you also have to play long.
Yeah. Like what you just described is exactly what makes a leader a true leader, right? Being able to take his or her emotion out of it and really just analyze, right? And not necessarily play the victim or make any of the other people that he or she is listening to the victim, or be able to say, hey, I see where you're coming from and we're going to remedy that. And this is how we're going to do it. How does that feel for you? Like
dude, we've
simplicity.
had any problem we've had in the last 100 days has come down to one thing and one thing only: money. It's when their money's fucked with, when the hours don't work, when this isn't communicated. It's nothing else. Yes, growth, and it's frustrating, but you realize you find that one seed, and you're like, okay, well, that's, so just don't mess with that part of it and be over communicative, and the rest of the stuff you can get over.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's, again, what coaches do, right? Like they hear someone go, I have all these problems, blah, blah, blah. And instead of them going, oh my God, they sit there and they wait for the opening. They wait for that thing to drop down into the mail slot where they go, have you thought about this? And someone goes, oh shit, I didn't think about that. And it really, like, the analogy I always give is that a leader, a coach, et cetera, someone that helps other people, runs companies, et cetera, should act as if they are control alt delete, right? So if you have a bunch of tabs open, right, and you're like, why is my computer running so slow? I don't know. If someone goes, hey, you got to hit control alt delete and close all tabs, right? All of a sudden now their RAM frees up, they have space, and they can go, okay, what else is going on my computer right now that might be leading to disempowering results? Dude, fascinating.
This conversation, like what I was talking about today with my project managers and my construction crew is like, okay, so they're remodeling my home right now, and they've been on it for like a couple months. And what I realized, and this is the habit I'm changing too. So there's 20 things to do, and that's great. But when you walk into a day and you have 20 things to do, the anxiety takes over. You rush around everywhere and nothing gets done. And so now what we're going to do is, what's the 3 things we need to get done today? When you do those things, you're done.
Yes.
It allows you to be clear. But here's what it allows you to do the most. It allows you to be thorough.
Yes, 100%. Jason Skisick talks a lot about this when he had his gym, right? He wanted to motivate all of his coaches to work toward one common goal, right? Like efficiency, one thing. And what he said was, hey, if we make this certain amount of money, I'll take you guys all to Hawaii, right? So now they understand what they're doing. They understand what the benefit of this is, and everyone's in alignment, right? Same as you were saying, right? Like, let's get these 3 things done. And when you're done with those, we're done, right? So it allows people to go, okay, there's a mission, there's an end point, right? Because again, when you have 20 things and you're not prioritizing what necessarily needs to get done first, it's hard for people to turn off. It's hard for you to turn off. It's hard for you to know when your day is done. Yeah.
There's the buzzword. It's that I have a habit, and I don't know if you do this in your business, is that the way I speak, sometimes everything sounds like a priority.
Dude.
But in my mind, so I have a rule. This is very simple, okay? And I'm not saying it's foolproof, but if you work with me, this is the first thing I'll tell you. If it's an email, get to it when you want to. If it's a text, it's semi-important. If I call you, that means it needs to get done right now.
Yes. Yes. I love that, man. It's so accurate, because like, it's common, I found, for people that really love what they're doing to just essentially want to be Mel Gibson in that movie. I forget what it is, The Patriot or whatever, where he's just like, let's fucking go.
By the way,
right?
It's my number 1 meme. I use it 72 times a day. It's my
favorite.
Yes.
And it's like, it's common, right? But at the same time, that's a great button to have, right? There are times where things might pop up and you're like, okay, guys, now we do have to put that like, let's go hat on and get shit done. But when that's the primary or only button one has, and it happens day after day after day after day, eventually people are going to burn out, especially you yourself, right? Like, that's what happened to me is, I was putting these unnecessary deadlines on myself that no one was telling me I had to do. There wasn't even like clients telling me, hey, we'd like this. I was just formulating things and having fun to a certain degree. Like I love, again, reaching big goals, but I had no way to articulate if that big goal was actually a priority or if it was just some random thing that maybe was a 12th priority that I was making a number one priority. And when you prioritize everything, you actually don't prioritize anything.
And what I will just shift gears here a little bit, because I
Mm.
was talking to Cassie, because she speaks to Rachel.
Mm.
She was mentioning to me that like y'all's big focus this year was not traveling as much, right?
Yes, like being able to, stay put, allow ourselves to create this space first. Because what I realized was, again, it's like anything. When you have too many cooks in the kitchen, it gets crazy, right? So when we're building businesses, when we're also now raising an amazing puppy, when we have, a lot of friends and different connections, and also we're going from trip to trip to trip. I mean, you guys know, right? Like it's challenging when you're traveling all the time to really have enough space to think about what is the priority? Am I showing up the way I want to? Am I taking care of myself in the way that's going to continue to allow me to show up? And so what I found was that while it's amazing to travel, I think it's kind of a thirst trap that a lot of entrepreneurs fall into. Like, yeah, you're going to make all this money and you're going to travel everywhere. And that's great. But at the same time, like what we were realizing is like, yeah, well, if we're constantly thinking about the next trip, that's taking energy away from how we can make our business better. And, again, like I fucking love what I do and I get so much fulfillment from it. And I love traveling too. But when I looked at the last 3 years, I was like, okay, that travel was necessary, right? For me to get into a lot of groups and just meet people and see like how I could really become the person I am. And then it was time for me to put that to bed for a little while and go, okay, I got my fix of that. I really know I'm on my path now. Now let me hunker down, build this stuff, and be able to travel to like, say, places like Virginia instead of California all the time, or Mexico.
People don't get it. Like where we are, like you're in Boston, you're way different than me. Like where we are, like the town has 8,000, 10,000, 6,000. Okay. I went down to Pittsburgh to get a car last week and I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, all these people everywhere and it feels exhausting. And like, it's weird because there is a joy to have so much space in nature and freedom to not be in traffic and so on, to just feel comfortable in the move. Like what I try to tell people is, and this is just my personal opinion, if you're 20 or you're 18, you need to go live in a city. You need to meet interesting people. You need to travel. You need to have that energy. But when you're building businesses, you need the space.
Yeah. And you need as much consistency as possible, right? Like I eat pretty much the same things every day. I wake up at the same time. I go to bed at the same time. I have the same ritual practices. And it's not because I want to be boring. It's because like, Mark Zuckerberg, right? Which weird person to use an example, but he wears the same things every day. Someone outside looking in might be like, why the fuck would he do that? Or when I tell people I eat the same things every day, why would you do that? Well, for me personally, and I'm not saying anyone needs to take this on, but for me personally, things like food, I'm like, hey, I love what I eat. I truly enjoy it. It gives me less that I have to think about. I know exactly what times I'm going to cook breakfast, lunch, dinner. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know exactly what hours I'm on calls. The less things I can think about every day actually paradoxically gives me space, right? It's awesome.
At 4:30, good luck asking me shit. I'm like, I don't have an answers. Like, please leave me alone. And I think a lot of people, time in the saddle doesn't mean you're getting the thing done, right? And I think I would say that's the hardest thing for me because we have metrics that we have to hit, right? But like talking to my mentor last night and we're looking at the first 4 months of this year compared to the company last year. And he was like, look, all that's great. But he's like, if you look at one number and one number only, he's like, look at your net. He said, look at your net gross profit. He goes, that's 220%. He's like, the other things, he's like, look, I get that your net profit is not where you needed to be, but you also spent more money. And he goes, when that catches up with itself, he goes, you're going to see as they would say, the hockey stick. And so meaning like, perfect example, this whole week, exhausted. I'm roasted. Like, I know that we're moving in the house. It's been stressful. There's big jobs. I know I'm roasted. My workouts haven't been amazing, like all that stuff like that. But in my opinion, still being able to get the job done, even when you're that to me, because when in my 20s, I was highly emotional, highly like this, I would just disappear. like, so what I found is still being able to show up to the game, operate, know that you need to lock it in, like, and do better. But like, it's as simple as like, on Monday, I'm going to do a fast. And like, that is like a reset for me, but like, these little tricks, like, and so that's what people don't do is they double down on the bad, and it just continues. And then a week turns into 2 weeks, turns into a month, turns into 6 months.
Exactly. Like I heard something recently that was like, if you don't prioritize your own life, someone else will prioritize it for you. And generally, the people that are going to do that do not have your best interest at heart, right? Like, we think about the rat race, for instance, right? Like, if you don't actually have space to come out of that and think, is this actually what I want? Should I be working, going to school for this thing because my parents told me, and all these kind of things, right? Like, if you don't have space, you don't have room to actually make sure that you're living the life that you want to live. And this is like the idea of a dark night of the soul, or it's more professional name, a midlife crisis, right? Is realizing in a very short amount of time, holy shit, everything I've been doing is not actually in alignment with me. And this is the thing with time blocking. I had this limiting belief around time blocking, right? Like, oh, that's boring. I don't want to know what I'm going to do every day. But actually, it's complete opposite. Time blocking, when you own a business and when you're a professional and doing whatever you're doing, is actually what allows you space. Because again, if I know what times I eat, what I'm going to eat, what days I'm spending with Rachel, what time I finish work, like, I don't have to think about any of that. And then when the time comes, I'm like, cool, now I have space. And it's so important as a business owner to be able to have that space, to continue asking ourselves, like, are we moving in the right direction? Does this feel in alignment? What are our clients saying? How can we make this better? A big part of why I'm now releasing the Conscious Cannabis Collective is because I was realizing that my clients were asking for things that I wasn't able to put into the container that I had, right?
Yes.
And that took space to be able to go, well, okay, they're asking for these things. Those things sound awesome to me. I want to do those things, but how do I do that? And it's taken 3 months for me to actually like come to the conclusion of how I was going to do that. And I would have never been able to do that if I was traveling all the time, going out all the time. Again, things that aren't inherently bad, but it's like, am I putting the cart before the horse? Like, what is the priority right now? Exactly.
And I think knowing you, and I was actually talking about you in our sales meeting, because I was explaining to them that no matter how many podcasts I do, for there's a glimpse of time, I do get nervous.
Yeah, same.
Turns on. Yeah, until the camera turns on. So like, I was talking to them about like talking to customers, and it's never gonna go away.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think, right, above what you're gonna teach in the group and above what you're teaching in general, I think people feed off of energy. And I think people feed off of like good energy, and your energy is so great that the perfect example is like, I'm not a huge fan of Grant Cardone, but he said something. He's like, you're coming to 10X and you think you're learning from the people on stage, but the actual value is the person sitting right next to you.
Yes.
And like, so I love masterminds, don't get me wrong, and I've learned from them. But the relationships I've taken away, somebody that else is willing to commit to themselves to jump in the group, that's somebody I want to be friends with.
Yes, I love that, because I talk about this too in Connect with Cannabis. I'm like, you may think you joined this, right? Or now the Conscious Cannabis Collective to learn information, but you didn't, because you could have learned information anywhere. We live in the age of information, right? So what you really showed up here for is to figure out who you are, right? Self-mastery is a term that I throw around a lot. Like, you're not really like, and again, that's like the idea of having the right why, or a deep enough why, right? Like, if I joined a financial mastermind recently, and this is great because on one of the first calls, this is what Jeremy said. He was like, you guys didn't show up here to become rich, right? If you think you did, you're going to be really disappointed, because you're going to realize that when you are rich, right? Let's say you complete that goal, that's not going to fulfill you in itself. But what will fulfill you is following your heart into what you're interested in and meeting other people that are also interested in that, because that's the true gem. Human connection is why we truly do anything. And it all starts with our connection to self, right? It's kind of like if you have a child, right? And that child wants to play guitar. Are you like, oh, you're not going to make any money in that, stop that, right? Or regardless, if you think the kid's going to just pick it up for 3 days and put it down, you're like, hey, yeah, let's go do that, right? Because you want to show that child, like, follow your heart, do what your heart is leading you to, and you'll never end up in the wrong place. Maybe you don't continue being a guitarist, but you meet an amazing person that you're like, oh my God, actually, I want to be a drummer. And it took me going to guitar and meeting this instructor that actually teaches drums too, to figure that out,
Yeah, I got to tell you this story.
Please.
So when we got this business under contract in the office I'm sitting in, I was flying up there. So offer goes out. He's okay with it. He wants to meet in person. So I fly up there, my first time meeting a business owner in his house, trying to buy his business, trying to, get him to trust me that I'm the guy to do it, right? 50 years in the space, 25 years of his company. And the whole time I'm flying up, I go, you like imbecile, like you should have spent more time learning about buying businesses. You should have bought businesses back when you were 20. Like all these things are like, and then we jump in the car and my business partner picks me up and I'm driving up an hour and a half and I'm like, oh my God, it's so ridiculous. And I'm getting nervous. And, I sold wine for 20 years. I'm restaurant, like what the, this is a waste of time. When I open up the door of his kitchen area where we're meeting, there's 700 bottles of wine in his wine cellar. And I walk right up and I go, yeah, I've been to that vineyard. I've been to that vineyard. Oh, do you love this wine? Because I like the way that this tannin does this thing. And boom, immediate connection with him. And we spoke for 3 hours. And I thought to myself, it all makes sense now.
Yes, I love that. It's like the idea of people don't buy businesses, they buy people, right? And like, that's what everyone wants. What, like, if there's one objective thing I've realized in life, I've never met anyone, maybe a sociopath or psychopath, that's not like, I want more genuine people in my life. Because especially in today's age where we've been hoodwinked in a lot of ways, right? We've been told that if we follow these goals, we're going to be happy. If we are on social media, there's millions of people on there. So that's all you need, right? But at the end of the day, the pandemic definitely showed that really right now, when I talk to everyone I talk to, they're just like, I just want some really good friends that I can sit around a fire with, right? Like things that are so simple, because in an age of complexity, which again, technology is great. It's allowing us to do this. I'm not talking down on any of that. I do not want us to go back to live in caves, right? But it's important to also understand priorities, right? Like we're talking about, right? Like, what do people really want? They want people around them that can inspire them by first allowing them to feel safe being fully themselves. And that is very little like about the business and more so about like being able to connect with them, right? Like if you went in there and you immediately just opened up spreadsheets, the guy would be like, whoa, let's get to know each other first, right? Like, why wouldn't it be the opposite, right? If you walk in there and you're like, hey, who are you? He's like, whoa, let's get to the spreadsheets first. Like, that's not how it works. And so everything is evidence, right? Pointing back to this need for human connection. And, again, that's what's been great about really traveling these last couple of years, is that I've met so many people like that. And now I have these beautiful friendships. I don't need to travel as much. I can talk to these people. It's incredible. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't go do that first. And so, what I tell everyone is like, it's very common, like you were saying, oh my God, I should have done this. I should have done that. But that's the part of us that believes that life happens to us, right? That we made the wrong decisions, et cetera, et cetera. When we can tap into that higher version of ourselves, our higher self, as it's called often, we can realize that not only are we the main character in the movie, but we also directed it. We're also the narrator, and that everything happened for us, even if some of those things were not exactly what we loved. Like, for instance, my dad passing away was something that was very hard for me to go through, but it also really kicked my ass into gear and made me realize, like, this experience of being in this illusion of separation is finite. Like, how am I going to leave the Garden of Earth greener than when I found it? And he also taught me that the most important thing I could do was not how much money I can make, was not even the business I created. It's whose hearts I touch along the way, and whose hearts touch mine along the way, and that was a lesson that I wouldn't have learned at least as early as I did if he didn't pass away when he did. And so being able to look at everything as happening for you, it's a choice, right? It's not that I can prove it scientifically, but it's a choice. And when we choose to believe that, life becomes so much more magical. And we still get to take action on things, of course, right? Like the Quaker branch of Christianity says, pray and move your feet. But it allows you to have faith in where you're moving your feet, so long as it's centered to your heart, is exactly where you need to be.
The line that got me was Tony Robbins on a Netflix show said, if he was the father that you've always wanted, you wouldn't be the man that you are today.
Yes, exactly.
It was like the reframe that I needed, right? To take ownership and understand that it's all working for me. Because I was talking to my father yesterday, and it's like, if you look back at all my life lessons, like everything is making me like uber successful in my current role, because of all, like, if I didn't have all those things, I'd be a one-sided cube. but now there's jagged edges, there's all these different things, and you're realizing that you, right, and what I think is the most important is your group and businesses and all this and all these groups that you're in. It's like the first impact is great, but the impact of that person, and then they impact their kid or their cousin or their mother, like the ripple effect down of that impact is actually what I seek. And a lot of that stuff you're not going to see ever, but it's there, right? And you know that, and so when you, I find this funny, when you tell people what you do, per usual, I get the craziest reaction from my crew. They're like, "Oh, I want to meet this motherfucker. Like, can he come out? Like, this is a job." They love it. I think it's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
Like, do you still get people like do you tell them what you do? Like, you're a weed integration coach, and they're like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah, people immediately get so interested. Like I tell people all the time, like, "Oh, I'm a cannabis coach," and they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Well, cannabis is a plant medicine, and I help people get high quality results with it." And usually what I'll bring up is like, we all know someone that has fallen prey to their own stories around cannabis, right? And when I explain it, they're like, "Dude, that's so fucking cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got to pinch myself most days too to make sure I'm not dreaming." And the thing is, never at one point, and I want to make this very blatant, like never at one point did I plan this. Like what happened was when I started really tuning into my heart, I ended up realizing, and I also took a break from cannabis because it wasn't cannabis's fault, but I realized that my own patterns with it were forcing me to stay exactly where I didn't want to be anymore. Like in a job I didn't want, around friends that again were amazing, but were not getting me where I wanted to go. Not all my friends, just a lot of them at that point. My core group that I grew up with has always been amazing. But, I started realizing like, this isn't the fault of cannabis. This isn't the fault of my parents. This isn't the fault of the world. It's my opportunity to take ownership. So I take that break. And then from there, I started following my heart and making some really challenging decisions, leaving the dispensary I was working at that I really loved working at, but it wasn't fully in alignment with me. And during that time, I started traveling, right? I got into coaching and I started traveling like I was talking about. And it was in being around people that weren't afraid to go, "Hey, do you see that you're this?" Right? And again, when we're ourselves, we might end up believing like, "Oh, the whole world's like this." And we overlook a lot of the magic that is truly what can create a change in the world and inspire people. And so it was in doing that where so many people were like, "Hey, what is this thing you do with cannabis? I've never heard anyone talk about cannabis like this." And over and over and over. And eventually I just started going, "Okay, yeah, I'll lead a ceremony for you. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll make a course." And it really just like, it really came out completely authentically. And that's been the most fun part of it is like, I'm just as shocked as most people, and now that I do it, I'm like, how was this not a thing? Because there's been so many people. I brought over 100 people through Connect with Cannabis and about 30 through the Grow program too. And, it's like, I found that so many people were missing this component. They were looking at cannabis as just like how much THC it has, how crystally it is, how high can you get? These metrics that are just, again, from my point of view anyway, were not leading me as an individual to anything good. And they were allowing me to miss out on the true power that cannabis had to teach me about my own true power. And like I tell everyone, cannabis is not the moon or sun, nor does it want to be looked at as that. It's a teacher, it's an aid, it's an ally that can point you back at the moon or sun if you become disoriented. But never did cannabis, right, in indigenous cultures, and also when I've spoken to the plant's like, "I think it's super weird that people end up needing me all the time. Like, that's not what I'm here for." The same way that you work with coaches, right? Like, if you called your mentor all the time and they gave you advice, and then you called with the same problem 5 minutes later and the same problem 5 minutes later, eventually they'd be like, "Austin, you need to go do this on your own," right? Why do people not think?
I have a rule. If we talk about the same thing for 3 weeks in a row and you can't fix it the fourth, I'll drop you as a client.
Exactly.
I'm not going to sit here and talk about the same shit. I'm not going to collect your money just and be some bystander. Like, it's time to get to work.
Yeah, not up or shut up, and plant medicines are the same way, and this is how, again, indigenous cultures, while they might, live in huts and not have all the technology, they understand that part. And the whole idea is not because I'm trying to put unnecessary rules on people, right? Some people might get triggered and go, "Oh, I can't enjoy it." No, you can definitely enjoy it. But the part that's truly the biggest enjoyment is allowing yourself to have a co-creative relationship with this plant and allow yourself to really feel like, whoa, like for me, I've gone a month now without cannabis because I'm still integrating and my life is becoming the psychedelic. Like every day I wake up high on life. Like, and every once in a while, if I get stuck and I can't seem to solve something with the same level of thinking that created it, I connect with the plant intentionally, I get my idea, and then I go into sobriety again and I put it into action. Again, like everyone's relationship is going to look different with it. And my job here is never to tell anyone what it should look like or what they need to do or any of these things. My job is to inspire curiosity. And for a lot of people, they've just never thought about this, you know, and I always tell everyone, like, what could your life look like if this type of relationship was available to you, right? If you could actually integrate it so that you were so high on life all the time, experiencing synchronicities, serendipities, chance encounters, that you were filling your cup. You were meeting the people that were right for you. You were in the business that was right for you. You were doing all the things, because I talk to people a lot in Connect with Cannabis and I go, yes, this is a cannabis course, but again, you didn't come here for cannabis, right? And working on cannabis is not going to make your relationship with the plant better. It's going to be working on your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being and being supported in that. When you tackle the root causes, everything upstream gets better as a result. And so I tell everyone, you don't have a cannabis dependency problem. You have a cannabis dependency result that is the result of whatever the true problem is. And that's what we're going to focus on. Because if I just taught people what THC means and what CBD means when they're having challenges stemming from childhood trauma and these kind of things, I wouldn't be doing anyone a service. That's just more information. And we're all piled higher and deeper, aka PhD, in information. We don't need more information. If information was the answer, all of us would be ascended masters. And regardless of what Instagram wants to tell you, being an ascended master is not nearly as common as you may think in the 3D plane. So it's very interesting.
The best 5 minutes I've ever heard in my life, because and the reason why is because I could attribute exactly what you said to everybody's thing, right? Whether you use cannabis or don't use cannabis, or that is my biggest concern, is that, I have a client who is 32 years plus as an alcoholic. Okay. I have never once in the 7 months we've been coaching talked about him stopping drinking, ever. Never said slow down, never said stop, none of those things. Those words have not come out of my mouth. But yeah, he's barely drinking now.
Exactly. Because that's not the problem. That's just the coping mechanism that deals with whatever the problem is.
And guess what? The moment that you tell him to stop more, he's going to try more.
Exactly. Because then his ego is going to get triggered, because that is acting as a protection mechanism. And until we find safety in ourselves by being able to create space, be with ourselves, work with coaches, mentors, guides, etc., until we find that safety and we experience it, it's not even worth it to talk about the coping mechanism. Because, best case scenario, someone's just going to make the addiction hop, right? So it becomes from alcohol or cannabis or, cocaine or whatever it is, to maybe something healthier, right? Like exercise or whatever, but it's really a scapegoat, right? And for me, I don't want to waste my clients' time, because time is the most valuable resource we have. It's the one thing that even if you have billions of dollars, you can't buy more of. So why am I going to waste time dealing with something that's not really the real issue, And so I love that you mentioned that.
Okay. And now we're going to spend the rest of the time on the two concepts that have changed my life. Okay.
Let's do it.
It took me 6 months. These are walks in the morning, and these are my themes for the rest of my life. And I want you to break them down in the context that you see them. Okay. The first concept that I have made peace with, and I'm 100% behind, and I'm rooted in, is that no longer will I ever sell myself. I'm not selling the mission. I'm not selling my coaching services. I'm not selling the vision. If you see yourself in the vision, and I do something to you, or the company does something, or my coaching does something to you, then you can jump on board.
Yes.
But I'm not selling anything anymore.
Yes. I love that. It's funny, because what I get from that is that the idea of, like, what I tell everyone is, if you're really doing what is true for you, if you're truly in alignment, your message is not going to be for everyone. You're probably going to piss a lot of people off, right? And so what I tell everyone is, if you don't resonate with this, do not reach out to me, because it's not about me. It's not even about what I say. It's about the energy, right? If you resonate with this, that's something saying there's something there for me, right? I will be a magnet for the people that are willing to hear this, right? But never do I want to say, hey, I'm the guy, right? Or this program is the thing, right? It's really just the energetic signature of whether or not
I'm also not in charge of your results anymore.
Yeah,
I provide you the information, but you have to do it. I'm mature enough in my coaching to not take myself down with it.
100%. It's like the analogy I always give for a really good coach is like bumper bars on a bowling alley, right? You're not the one that throws the ball. You're not the one that drives to the alleyway and gets someone ready. You're just the bumper bars that if they rely on you, right? If they ask for the right questions, you can allow them to make sure their ball goes straight down the alley. But again, you're not doing that work. Like that's the analogy that always comes to me. Like that's why I tell my clients, if you have a question, reach out to me. I will help you and we'll make clear accountability steps. And if you get stuck, you can reach out to me, but never at any point do I want people to think that you buy into my services and your life changes. That's not how it works. There's an intermediary step. You purchase in, right? You do the work, you ask questions, and you literally just embody what you want. You get clear. I can help you do those things. But again, I can't create clarity for you, right? All I am is bumper bars. And if you allow that to be what that is, you'll get a strike every time, but it's not as a result of me. It's a result of you dedicating yourself to yourself and doing the work.
Love it. Okay, now here's the next one. I think of anything I've come up with, I think you're going to love this one more than anything, and I can't wait for you to rip on it.
Hell yeah.
All right. So what I found, especially with type A high achievers, it's not that they are unmotivated. It's not that they're procrastinators. It's not even that they're not getting it done, but they're not reaching the levels they want for a reason, okay? And so here's my barometer on life moving forward for me personally when it comes to business, life, and in general. I only will run races I can't win.
Yes.
The mountain has to be so big that there's no end in sight.
Yes. You know what I love about that? Is the way I think about that too is I have an analogy that is, would you rather open your Christmas presents before Christmas morning, or would you rather open them on Christmas morning and be absorbed into the mystery, right? So I think a lot of times in life, what I have done, and I won't project it onto anyone else listening, but what I did was I needed to know all the steps, right? So what I feel in that statement is the idea of like, I don't know where this is going and I don't want to know, right? Because that would be, again, the mountain that I can see the goal of. I know exactly what's going to happen. I know the challenges I'm going to run into. That's no fun for me. The true fun and the way in which, like when you meet truly successful people, they understand this. And I don't mean financial. I don't mean any of these certain things. Those can be attributes of success, but they are not what creates true success. What creates true success is people that even if they think they've seen all the trees, realize they haven't. And they go, hey, you know what? I could walk down my steps and have a totally new experience than I've ever had before. When you're able to include that type of mystery into everyday life and keep everything new, that's when I find that you truly enjoy life and you embody joy.
It's wild because when I first got started in personal development, it was the goal was the target point, right? I find myself not having goals, but having values, right? And having, one of the bigger issues that I talk to new entrepreneurs about is you're so focused on what you're going to do, but you should be focused on right out of the gate what you're willing not to do.
Yes, exactly.
Then you build a life that's truly yours, not the other way around.
Yes, I love that, man. Because again, it's like, everything is a compass, right? And, how I talk about it too is like, this process of like, becoming your true self, self-realization, self-actualization, whatever you want to call it, right? Success, business, whatever, right? The idea is it's much more like cooking than baking, right? If it were like baking, it really wouldn't be fun, right? Like, not to say baking's not fun, but like what's really fun about cooking is you do it a little bit different every time. You don't know. Maybe you feel like this spice might be good here. Let me try that, right? And so it's more of a listening and tuning into than being tactical about exactly what to do, And so I 100% resonate with that, man, because, again, if you don't know who you're not, you won't know who you are, And so what I tell a lot of people is because we're used to stating things in a negation, right? Sometimes I tell people like, what do you want? Right. And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, what do you not want? And they list out a bunch of stuff. I'm like, okay. So if a person who doesn't want all these things, right? If this is a person who doesn't want all these things, then what do they want? And sometimes it's by knowing what you don't want, you can actually look at all of it and go, oh, what I actually do want is this then. I want space, I
am 100% committed to building the biggest empire of impact, cash flow, businesses, employees that exist on the planet. That's what I do know about myself.
Hell yeah.
What I'm willing to not do is to do that on the weekends.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
but it's taken so long mentally to have abundance in the days I'm willing to do it and not do it. And I'm not going to sacrifice time with my kid when we have one and all that just because. And so I
Yes.
believe that you can do both.
Yes, dude, you can have anything you want. And it sounds so cliche, but until you experience it, it's unable to really be embodied, as I found, at least in my own experience. And it's so important you say that, because again, what is, especially for men, but for women too, and they're falling into this too, like, what is the kind of like American dream? It's work so fucking hard, you know, sacrifice everything. And again, like, that is part of it, right? You will have to work hard at times. You will have to sacrifice things every once in a while. But if you don't put governors around your life, someone else will do it for you. And eventually you'll start realizing, like, you know, your partner gets really angry with you. You know, again, like, we just got this puppy, like, you know, all these things that I'm like, dude, like, that is so important for me to prioritize, because if I don't, I mean, what am I really doing? Am I really showing up as a man in the world if I'm just anxiously going for one area of my life, right? Like, you know, at the end of the day, if you truly love what you do, it's going to be a marathon, right? Not a sprint. And thinking that we can rush and get things done is such a thirst trap, you know, like, even think about like the entrepreneurial thing. I'm going to have 20 cups of coffee a day. I'm going to eat fast food to get back to work. Like, those things will not lead to a true fulfilling life, because again, is the true objective the business and the success and the metrics, or is it who you're going to become in doing so and the people you're going to be able to inspire, right? Like, for me, that is first, and the downstream things are effects of being that person, you know. But if I fuck myself up, put the cart before the horse, I'm only going to inspire people to do the same thing, and that would not be me leaving the Garden of Earth greener than when I found it. And so, yeah, this is so important to talk about.
I love it. So if people want to find your podcast, they want to find the group, they want to sign up, how do they do that?
Yeah, best place to talk to me is at the Real Ryan Sprague on Instagram. If you want to keep up with the podcast releases, the Highly Optimized podcast and the This One Time on Psychedelics podcast, you can go to @highly.optimized, the business account. And then we're releasing this insane mastermind called the Conscious Cannabis Collective. Guys, this is everything I have ever taught, plus guest presenters, morning ritual practice. Like, this is literally everything. And the deal is going to be crazy. It's going to blow your mind. So to get on the wait list for this, go to highlyoptimized.me and you can sign up for the wait list there. I am super excited, guys. This is like, I'm just so grateful I get to do this stuff. And with the people on my network, such as Austin, you're going to be blown away at how many side quests are in there. It's awesome. So if you want the most fun homework on the internet, come through.
It's always great to talk with you guys. If you got some value from this, send it to a friend, send it to somebody that would love to listen to it, and we'll see you next time.
See you, Austin.